And we are live. So today, actually first, welcome to Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon
Hi.
here.
Hi.
Kara, what's up? I always point the wrong direction because I mirror my...
Just point up, like, be excited that I'm here.
Yay, Kara's
Yeah.
here. But more importantly...
I'm not here all the time, so...
more importantly, we're celebrating the Panthers, Florida Panthers NHL team sweep of the Carolina Hurricanes. It was unbelievable. One of the coolest experiences that I've ever had as a sports fan. And now we're going to the Cup Finals, baby. So excited about that. Wanted to share it with all of y'all. Probably most of you don't give a shit at all. But I'm excited. So here we are. Anyways, Kara, episode 71. What are we talking about?
Today is really funny. I'm like pretty excited about how funny today is. It's mostly bad news. I hope you're ready for mostly bad news. We're going to start our day off right with some fentanyl. We're going to talk about fentanyl for a while and how crypto makes fentanyl possible. Seems real and legitimate. We're going to talk about Do Kwon in Montenegro. And we will move into Pakistan and the FATF, which is kind of interesting because I looked up some elements from the Financial Action Task Force, and I think Pakistan might actually be toting lies. Weird. And that we are going to end on some good notes, though. We're going to talk about Prometheum, and we're going to talk about Volts and how Volts is letting TradFi meet DeFi. I actually thought we talked about Volts before, but they're in the news again, so we'll touch on it.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's not keep everybody waiting. I'm not wearing merch today. I'm just wearing my own shirt. So if anybody's into skulls and...
Do you usually borrow shirts or?
Yeah, I usually borrow them. Usually borrow shirts. Man, you're throwing me off. Let's just do the video.
I'm going to have to get Ryan to make all my PFPs forever because...
You just love those, eh? Is that like your favorite part of the pod right now? Is just seeing the character of you?
100%. That's why I show up every day.
Except for you don't have tattoos. I think so that we're not false advertising. Yeah. I think you have to get covered in tattoos. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm also gonna have to lose like 90 pounds. So they released a new article, like a new cartoon of us that's like our full bodies. And I was like, Ryan has really high expectations of me.
I haven't seen it, but I'll have to take a look. I'm sure it's awesome.
I'm going to take that cartoon to my hairdresser and be like, can you do this?
Can you make me look like this, please?
You know, I find it super interesting that we don't get a lot of people tuning in live because our shorts get really good engagement. But also, I've had a number of people ask if they can come on the show to talk about their product launch or that kind of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
But they don't tune in. So
if you're watching,
if you're like really ghost watching, I need you to tell me.
Yeah. So, I mean, this doesn't preclude us from doing this in the future, but we've kind of always said the goal here is not to shill any particular projects. So if anything, if we're going to have like we do with Tashi and Moonwell and others, Infinity Keys, probably nothing. I'm sure we'll have some guys from probably nothing at some point, just to talk about news and have some banter, and you can get to know, founders of other projects and so on. But we're not doing shilly anything. So we're not doing any paid shills or any of that shit. The only paid shill that I'll do is merch. Give me merch and I'll shill your project for as long as it takes to talk about how awesome your merch is. But anyways, so I think your microphone's muted on the other stream.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
I was getting a weird echo, so I was trying to prevent that.
We are good to go.
Okay.
All right. So fentanyl.
Are you ready to start your morning?
I was going to say we're not taking fentanyl. We're just talking.
Yeah. No, I had all this Bitcoin, and I thought there's a bunch of news articles today about how fentanyl is happening because of crypto. And so the original where this stems from is the idea that people are purchasing fentanyl ingredients on the dark web or purchasing fentanyl itself on the dark web. And they're doing
using
so with
crypto.
crypto, and because it's pseudonymous, they're not getting caught. And then this has devolved into like I've found so many articles about this now. It's devolved into like there are Chinese factories creating fentanyl ingredients and selling them for tornadoed crypto to Mexican cartels to sell to American conservatives. I'm like, geez, the fear mongering, the FUD, it's not helping. And then also all the numbers are everywhere. So I think that there are actually a couple of genuine reports that are saying, hey, $38 million went into these wallets, and these wallets we know also have bought fentanyl on the dark web and that kind of thing. So like, I think there's some validity to what they're talking about, but also the numbers are everywhere from like 1 million to 40 billion. So I'm struggling with this news.
Yeah.
So not think it's too funny, you know?
I obviously have an opinion on this, as you can
imagine. I'm shocked.
But there's estimates of between 10 and 15% of all fiat cash transactions are for illicit purposes. So to think that there is no illicit use of cryptocurrency is, well, first of all, it's an unattainable target. There's like, no matter what, as long as we have criminals in society, which we probably always will, they're going to find ways to do the things that we don't want them to do. And they're going to transact with means of transaction. Okay. So is it possible that there's some Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies that are running through tumblers and whatever being used for the precursors to fentanyl and other shit? Probably. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that probably happens. But we have incredibly sophisticated observation structures for this relative to cash. So, I mean, it's orders of magnitude different tracing crypto transactions relative to cash transactions. Now, I know that is obvious, but that's where like all of this just goes to die. I mean, yes, it happens, but we have way more ways to gain insight into where, how, and who it's happening with relative to cash. So it still exists. It always will exist, but it's way better for law enforcement. And we talked about this in one of the early episodes, actually. The city of Calgary, where I used to live, set up a department for cryptocurrency and the Calgary Police Service, and for investigations around fraud and misappropriation and theft and all of this other shit. And I think that's probably just what you're going to see, the same way that you see organized crime departments and all of this other shit. But you don't need to have, so tangential point here, but one of my brothers is, well, my brother, I only have one brother, two sisters, but my brother works for the RCMP in Canada, and he does international organized crime. So his whole area of focus is plainclothes, cross-border, essentially drugs and guns, and drugs, guns, human trafficking. Anyways, they spend an incredible amount of resources physically following everybody, because unless you physically see the transaction, you don't know what happened. The beautiful thing about blockchain is you can just follow the trail of where the assets went. And it's not that difficult to figure out whose wallets they are. Now, there are ways around it. There's sophisticated ways to remain quasi-anonymous, but they're not very simple. Some of the smartest...
And even these articles are saying everyone's pseudo-anonymous. That means they're trackable. That means you could potentially have a harder crime crackdown if you want to be war on drugs, war on terror via blockchain than via anything else.
The war on drugs, to me, is the biggest grift in the history of modern society. Like, I think it's like, anyways, don't get me started on the war on drugs, but
I'm going to send you a book about it, because I agree.
It's rare that we agree on social topics. So this is an interesting one. All of that being said, I mean, there's a lot of FUD around this. There always has been. Fentanyl's freaking horrible. Of course, it's killing, somewhere between 70 and 100,000 Americans a year. That doesn't include all the other countries on earth that people are dying in great quantities from
and it
overdoses.
Is mixed into everything else, and it's the great unknown, and it is absolutely a crisis in many, many jurisdictions.
And so
but I don't think we can blame crypto. I like, if you're going to point fingers, I don't think it's at the financial backing for it, because if it's not crypto, it will be something else.
And
like
if everything was digital, then it would actually be a lot easier to trace from, say, the cartels to the end users, where that flow of money and all the intermediaries.
You mean if it was an enforced CBDC?
Or even just a normal cryptocurrency. Like it's relatively like, because drug dealers need to transact also. And the only way you're soon to be able to do that is with KYC AML.
Is there a DEX that's specifically serving drug dealers? Like, is that a niche market that they should be looking into? So when I started working in crypto, specifically when I started working at Rome Blockchain Labs, I had quite a few of my friends tell me that they couldn't become involved in crypto because of its implications in human trafficking.
Yeah.
And I had to have very long conversations with them about how human trafficking started before we had fiat systems as well, and how that isn't to blame any particular financial system, but is to blame the cruelty of humanity. And I feel like it's the same for war on drugs or anything else that's dark web about crypto. Is like, yes, this is a way people transact. Unless you get rid of all ways for people to transact, which is essentially tying your hands behind your back and like covering all of your face, then we will continue to do bad stuff, right?
I mean, I had a really inappropriate joke to
Gross.
make. I won't.
I didn't mean it that way. I meant like, so we can't talk.
I get it. Anyways, it's one of those things. Like it's really shit. Silk Road was obviously the first and most commonly understood version of the dark web. Back then, when Silk Road was a thing, and forget all the crazy shit that happened during Silk Road, but when that was going on, that was probably one of the primary use cases for Bitcoin at the time. There wasn't a whole lot of other reasons to hold Bitcoin for a lot of people as a means of transaction, but that has completely changed. Anyways, we can move on from this. Fentanyl's horrible. The cartels, in my opinion, should be blown off the face of the planet. It's ridiculous. I think they're killing people globally in numbers that we can't even fathom, and that to me is akin to genocide. I think that's absolutely unbelievable that this even exists today. Human trafficking, horrible, absolutely destructive to many
all these things are awful. And, I want to be clear, we're not trying to make light of any of the travesties here, but blaming crypto isn't going to solve anything.
It's not crypto's fault. And that, for some reason, everybody likes to just try to point out all these challenges with Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin's leading to more illicit activity. No, actually it's not. It's, if anything, making it easier to track illicit activity than cash. So anyways, okay, let's move on.
This actually ends up segueing really nicely into our next one, which is talking about the Financial Action Task Force. And so basically what happened is Pakistan's finance minister yesterday said that cryptocurrency legalization in Pakistan is not going to happen as long as the Financial Action Task Force exists, because the Financial Action Task Force groups countries into how illicit their money is, essentially. For lack of a better way to phrase that. So that's anti-money laundering, that's terrorist behavior, that's drugs, just like we were talking about, or sex trafficking, just like we were talking about, or anything to that end. And okay, I have quite a bit to say here. So I wanted to know more about this. So I actually went to the FATF website and I read a bunch of old news and I read a bunch of new news about the FATF. And it's pretty interesting. So they don't just group you and say, hey, screw you, you're not very good with your money and we're never doing anything with you. They actually come up with recommendations and they send ground task forces if your country would like. They send the task force over and they help you with whichever items you want. And you don't have to enact all of their recommendations, but they have recommendations. And if you want to work with them to solve any of those issues within your home country, they help you do that, which I thought was kind of cool. I did not find anything about cost. I did not find anything about who incurs what. I just thought it was an interesting way to go about this. So they have 3 lists. They have a white list, a gray list, and a black list. A black list is essentially like, we can't help you. You have... you're too far gone. No, it's just like we don't have good recommendations because it's so far out of our realm of experience, essentially. So we can't say that we believe in what you're going to do, but you can move from the black list to the gray list. And you just have to request this re-audit, essentially. And then the gray list is, hey, we've sent you recommendations. You're working on the recommendations. And if you meet those recommendations or a certain percentage of those recommendations, then we whitelist you. Here's where I think this is interesting. Pakistan has said, we can't legalize crypto because we're gray listed. And if we're gray listed, people won't trust us. But all of the research I found, including on the FATF site and on Pakistan's own government website, they're not gray listed. They've been whitelisted since 2022. And they started that whitelisting process in 2019. So
yeah. So it's an interesting contrast. And thank you for the background, because I definitely didn't go to the FATF's website and check this out. But I mean, this is an interesting kind of counterexample to what we're seeing in other countries in Asia and the Middle East and Africa and so on, in that they're trying to embrace the technology. In some countries that are autocratic, they're trying to fast track CBDCs and all these other forms of government oversight, control, and manipulation. But Pakistan, on the other hand, is just saying, this is what I read out of this, is that, you know what, we can't control it. So we're just going to say, we're going to blame it on someone else. We're going to say, we just aren't going to allow any legalization of cryptocurrencies in the country. And now we'll just maintain our control over our fiat system. That's what I read into this. I'm not sure if you read any more here, but I just think,
I guess I just kind of want to talk about the critical thinking surrounding this type of news, which, you know, is my favorite thing to talk about. But when I first read this quote, we can't do anything because we're on some kind of gray list, my immediate tin hat response is like, power and control, back off, don't do it. Right. But then the more I look into it, it's actually this group, as far as I can tell. And if you're from the FATF and you do bad work, let me know. Or if you've worked with the FATF and you don't believe what they do, I'd love to hear more about it. But from what I can tell, they have pretty clear recommendations. It's all public, it's all published, and they'll work with you to promote those things. And it's mostly against money laundering and terrorist financing. So this isn't like, they're not saying that we don't agree with the laws that you have, or we don't agree with the political system that you have, and we're here to change that. They're actually just saying, how can we make money, all money, safe for anybody? And yes, that's going to implicate crypto a little bit, as crypto and CBDCs come into play in that financial system. But it seems like such a strange cop-out the further I look into it, especially because unless they have secretly been put back on the gray list in 2023, they were just removed last year. They're whitelisted now. Pakistan is
what I'm assuming is the case, and this is an assumption, not fact. I'm assuming that FATF said, hey, you guys are whitelisted now, but unless you do this and this and this to help us believe that you're not harboring terrorists and allowing terrorist financing, which, I mean, they've done in the past very publicly. And so, I mean, it's a very corrupt country. There's a lot of nefarious nonsense going on there. I'm assuming they're like, you know what, we're not going to oust the terrorists. So let's just I'll blame it on that, on the FATF and
move on. And also,
that's it.
Depending on what kind of power and control they do have within their own country, maybe people can't look up these publications or can't see this news or don't see this news. Also, though, in like, just to counter everything I've said, the FATF website doesn't look like they've updated anything since 2022. So it is possible that Pakistan got put back on the list and I just can't find it. I feel like I should be clear about that. There is a possibility that I just can't find the information.
Well, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. Like, they may have been put back on the list, on the gray list, because they weren't able or willing to comply with some request about, you know, terrorist financing and money laundering, which would make sense. I mean, they've harbored a lot of terrorists, and there's been a lot of terrorist financing gone through Pakistan in the past. So, not to say it's happening now, but it wouldn't be surprising.
Speaking of harboring fugitives, what's going on with Do Kwon?
Boom!
Do Kwon's been in Montenegro for, I don't know, a few months now. I think a year. It's been that long.
Yeah. He, his attorneys applied for bail. It was actually granted, but he wasn't released because there was an appeal, and now his bail has been revoked. I think the argument that I could find, and I don't know if it's the full argument, but the argument I could find is they still claim that he's a flight risk, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's an international fugitive. Would be an international fugitive that a lot of people know about and are looking out for.
And can recognize.
Yeah.
Do you think crypto Twitter isn't gonna like snap his photo at the Market Airport underneath a train? Like,
yeah, like that'll happen for sure. So I mean, part of me thinks like this is just a means to, you know, to try to with more seriousness slap the hand on the way to the prosecution, and eventually potentially extradition back to South Korea, which I think is the ultimate end result that we'll see eventually. But I'm not sure if South Korea had issues with his release on bail. I would assume they probably did, for the same reasons. I mean, he evaded arrest for quite a while. I mean, he was on Interpol's list, as far as I understand, for quite some time before he was scooped up in Montenegro. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, I have very little sympathy for Do Kwon. I understand that often good people can get rolled up in shitty things. But
you wrote a blog about it, actually. I think you called it the Dirty Swan effect.
Dirty swans. But this one, to me, I mean, he thumbed his nose at U.S. regulators. He thumbed his nose at pretty much anybody globally that that had any issue with what he was doing with Terra Luna and UST. And unfortunately, it all came out in the wash in the end that there was a ton of fraud. There was a ton of nefarious nonsense going on, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. Like, I mean, the contagion from Terra Luna wiped out a ton of value, like hundreds of billions of dollars. That, if you look at the second and third order impacts, hundreds of billions of dollars of consumers' capital has disappeared. At the end of the day, the money comes from a person somewhere. Even if it's institutional, it's an LP from someone. If it's a company that's LPing, that company has owners. They got cash somehow. So anyways, I don't have a lot of sympathy for this, because to me, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he knew that it was wrong, and he was willing to say F you in a much more direct way than we say it. We say it tongue in cheek on Fridays. But
maybe we should get him on tomorrow, see what he has to say F you too.
Well, and again, when the FTX thing came on, he was on with Martin Shkreli and Akobe and others, and Ledger Status and a few others on Up Only, more or less laughing about everything. Yeah. I mean, pardon my French here, but go fuck yourself, man. Like, I don't know. I struggle with that. Not only did you weasel people out of billions and billions and billions of dollars, but now you're willing to come thumb your nose after the fact. I don't know. I just.
Okay. Let's talk about some uplifting news. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. We've got three things that are a little bit uplifting, I think. So Prometheum, I don't know if you've heard of Prometheum, one of the co-founders of the East, also is a co-founder of Prometheum. Pretty exciting. The intention here is that they have been approved by the SEC to be a crypto custodian. I don't really know what implications that has for the SEC and for all of the court cases going on, but they are the first one. People are calling it the maiden voyage. I think that's like a Prometheus joke. What do you think? Is this good? I think it's good.
Yeah, it's huge. So one of the biggest arguments against a path to meaningful regulation is custody. So in traditional finance, especially in America, custody is a big requirement. Where is custody? Who's responsible for it? What is the compliance requirements? What are the regulatory requirements? And so on. And it's a big piece of the regulatory infrastructure. And there's a few groups in crypto, Fireblocks, BitGo, I think Copper at one time, Phoenix. Like there's a few that everybody kind of assumed were custodians because they more or less alluded to it, and in some cases actually directly said it, but they're not actually legal custodians in the United States. And that's a huge problem for enterprise. That's a huge problem for institutions. And so this Prometheum thing has been going on for like 3 years. Like this isn't like they just applied last month and got it this month. Like this has been going on forever. And there's been a lot of these custodians that have been denied, applications that have been denied, as far as I understand. And so this is huge because it does a few things. Now there's a custodian. There's going to have to be more. No market is healthy with a single monopoly over custody. And so they're going to have to approve more. And when these start to proliferate, the path to regulation, and again, I mean, we talk a lot about regulation, and clearly I'm firmly in the camp that we are going to be regulated whether we love it or not. But what I'm talking about here is not making regulation easier. It's making our compliance to said regulation easier when that eventually happens.
Exactly.
And so I like this because I've been saying for months, years now probably, that one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is there's no path that people can follow to compliance if any of this regulation speculation becomes fact. And this is a very sizable, important, and meaningful step in this direction. So I'm very excited about this. This is super positive. There's no reason to have FOMO here. And there's definitely, I don't have any FUD for this one. I think this is great.
We're all going to use it. Go make an account now if you haven't.
And to be fair to the SEC, finally, they've done something good.
Yeah.
Like they've done something that actually furthers the space rather than tries to stifle growth.
Well, thanks, SEC.
Well, I mean, we shit on them a lot. So every now and then, I suppose we can.
So also as a partnership in TradFi, I feel like we've talked about this before, but I guess it's official now. Volts has officially teamed up with Jane Street. So that's kind of cool. I'm not too stoked about it because I think we've talked about it before. It doesn't feel like new news to me.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that now they partnered with Jane Street. Okay. And that's official.
I thought that we knew that already. We talked about Jane Street and Volts like 3 weeks ago, but maybe they were saying we're going to, and now they're saying we have.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is just recycling of news, but this is interesting. I think there's my issue here is that there's like between Wall Street grade lending and borrowing protocols. Like, first of all, what is that? What is a Wall Street grade lend and borrow protocol? There's no such thing.
It's a new term. They're gonna coin it.
There's no such thing currently, and they want to bring those types of protocols into the regulatory light. Cool, but again, I've been saying this for months. I don't think that a single service platform is going to be enough to motivate people to come over. It has to be an ecosystem, because okay, so you can go to Volt's protocol and they're combining, Wall Street grade lend borrow. Yeah. Okay, and then what? So
I think we should give it more credit than that, because this is kind of a use case for TradFi meaning DeFi. It's kind of a use case for people approaching institutions and seeing success that aren't a network, right? So we see Avalanche and that kind of thing being very successful with Deloitte and AWS and what have you. But if you're a DEX or a bot or you have a product, this is kind of the big first news version of Wall Street TradFi using it.
Definitely don't want to diminish it. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, but
no, not alone. But it's a good use case.
Well, it's a great signal, because only a couple of weeks ago, Jane Street was saying we're pulling out of all crypto activity in the U.S. And now they're saying, hey, we're not necessarily we're not trading crypto possibly for the time being, but we're still believing in the future of crypto in the U.S. And that's a very positive thing. So I don't want to shit on it, but
yeah. Okay, last one.
One step in the right direction.
Last one. I feel like we kind of know this also as well already, but essentially this is called Project Gotham, and Goldman Sachs and Microsoft are using AI to see if they can find patterns in the crypto space so they know what to invest in. So I guess they're trying to figure out what TA is. Like, why is this news?
Yeah, so this is I think the inevitable result of AI proliferation. Is that AI is going to be, I mean, it's not even remotely comparable to the capacity of the human brain when AI becomes powerful enough, which we're already there. Like AI is already.
That's fascinating.
It's unbelievable. It doesn't have the same reasoning functions yet, and emotion and different things, and some of that, like that.
And ethics, I got in a weird Twitter conversation with some people yesterday about ethics with AI.
Yeah.
Bear with me for this one. It'll be really quick. Yesterday I broke Bard. I said, make me a unique headline. It said, I can't do that. That's because Google has a really extreme ethics board. And so they don't want you to form relationships with your AI or take creativity away from humans. But if you go to ChatGPT and you say, make me a unique headline, they might not all be right, but they will be unique and it won't shut down on you. So there's kind of this element of like innovation versus ethics, which we always have, but for once we're not seeing it happen in like a military sense. It's just happening on your desktop.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think like AI to me is such a transformative technology. I think it's being overblown in the venture capital market right now. Like anything that has AI, it was getting, you know, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars thrown at it, which is obnoxious. Billions in some cases. And it's kind of all the rage. But having said that, I think there's some good about this, of course, because I think if these tools are available to, you know, common people, we're all on a relatively level playing ground. The problem is that these tools most likely aren't going to be available to the average person. And so the same way that HFT and quant firms completely changed the game for TradFi, significantly reduced margins, completely changed how retail and individual investors, even funds, can possibly invest. This could have a significant impact on the investability of crypto assets. Thinking this isn't going to happen is incorrect. It's happening. AI is going to happen. Microsoft, of course, investing $10 billion in OpenAI, has a vested interest in AI everything. And I mean, Goldman, of course, wants to find a way to have a meaningful, tangible edge. Why not? Of course. My only concern is that this is going to be somehow gated for large enough institutions. They're going to train models in ways that, and they have data, a lot of data that is very, very difficult for others to get. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think any of it is going to make a ton of sense. Here's what's interesting, actually, is, and this is maybe a whole other conversation, and I do have to jump. But what's interesting about AI is the data that's used to build these models. So as an example, Goldman, when they launch Onyx, will be able to see how counterparties transact, and they'll be able to look at transaction history, and they have a whole bunch of data to build these models on their clients, and in theory could use them against their clients for their trading desks. That's insane. And so there's going to have to be, like, there's been a lot of talk about AI regulation and privacy and all of this other stuff, and who your data can be sold to and how it can be used for models. Anyways, I'm very interested to see how Kamala Harris, the AI czar, addresses all of this. I think it's going to be ignorance and.
Okay. This is to reduce FUD, not create FUD, JD.
No, this is true.
I've got to say that the articles, like the headlines about Project Gotham, are really funny, and I'm not totally clear as to why. They're all trying to make it sound like it's a secret. I don't think it's a secret, or we wouldn't have news on it. Like, I don't think someone at Microsoft accidentally leaked Project Gotham. I think this is them staking their place, right? Also, before we go, about AI and crypto, KyberSwap is releasing some cool AI stuff, or Kyber Network, I guess, is releasing some cool stuff about marketplace indicators via AI. So they are releasing that, I think, mid-June. So it's not like only Microsoft is working on this either, right?
It'll be interesting to see where a limitation of liability exists here too, because as soon as, like, it's one thing for Goldman to build their own internal AI structure and then act on it with proper risk boundaries and so on. But for the average person, I mean, once AI can inform, the average person how to transact or on trends or on indicators, what if it's wrong? Like, is everybody able to sue the AI? Like that obviously not. There's probably some limitation of liability somewhere. But anyways, all right, I got to jump. So
JD,
wait,
go FUD yourself. No.
Oh man,
that's it.
I'm supposed to say it first. We talked.
You didn't say it at all yesterday.
What?
You just said you too, and I couldn't even get any work done.
Kiara, go FUD yourself.
Go